So, Jim Al-Khalili, why are you a secular humanist?
I was brought up believing in God with a Christian mother and a Muslim father. And so it was probably inevitable that at some points in my early teens, 12 or 13 years old, I started to ask the question, well, can they both be right? There are similarities, but there are also differences. I even then dabbled, I thought, well, maybe there is a God. I dated a girl when I was about 15 who was a Christian. And then she dumped me for her ex-boyfriend.
Then there is no God.
So I dumped God. So at the age of 15, I decided, and of course my scientific training as a physicist suggests that I have no reason for any supernatural explanations for the world. For me, it defines my curiosity about the world. I want to understand it using logic and reason. And so,
did your mother and father have any theological discussions between them?
They tended to be very tolerant of each other's beliefs. My mother sadly died a couple of years ago. My father is pretty much agnostic, bordering on atheist now.
Okay.
Interestingly, he still goes to my mother's church every Sunday.
Really?
Because he likes the people.
Oh,
you know, this is one of the social things, one of the draws of religion, the social cohesion idea. He says, I go along, he says, I stir them up now and again. I'm a bit mischievous, and I ask them, well, if Jesus fed the 5,000 with wine and fish on one day, how did they eat the next day? And he says they all look at their feet for a few minutes and say, oh, the Lord moves in mysterious ways. And he says, then I feel embarrassed and ashamed because I've upset them. So they didn't. We didn't have any big theological discussions. My mother, I think, was a bit disappointed when she knew I was an atheist, but I respected her views and she respected mine.
And you have been president of the British Humanist Association for how many years?
I was president for 3 years, a 3-year term of office.
And what is the reason that you sort of became an active secular humanist?
Well, it's funny, and actually I know a lot of people like me. I was approached to asked if I would take on the presidency by our chief executive, Andrew Cobson. And at the time, I wasn't particularly aware that I was a humanist, but only by looking at the humanist movement and what it stood for. And like many people, you say, oh, yeah, that's me. Tick, tick, yep, I agree. You know, that I try and be a good person. I try and be kind and empathic and compassionate, not because I want to be rewarded or because I'm afraid of being punished, but because it defines me as a human being. And when I realized that was what humanism, secular humanism, was about, there was no.
But what do you think is the main sort of issues that the humanist movement has to deal with in the world? What's the most important issues?
At the moment, of course, the most important issues are the rise of the intolerance from certain areas of religious society. Certainly in Western Europe, in Sweden and Britain and elsewhere, religion is on the retreat. And secular views are growing and expanding very quickly. But it does seem to be almost the threat that religion feels from rise of rationalism and secular ideas, that it's reacting against it. I'm not suggesting that that's the reason for ISIS or those sorts of the extremist views. But we are, I think the biggest issues certainly are that those who do not have a religious view should be free to have that view. You know, we're not at the stage that in many countries, whether it's Saudi Arabia or Bangladesh, or even Stephen Fry is going to be taken to court for blasphemy in Ireland. For goodness sakes, it's ridiculous. So while the British humanist movement has many campaigns, is very active, and I guess you must be doing similar sorts of things here in Sweden, against blasphemy laws, against the teaching of creationism at schools. Making sure that no religious group has an advantage in society over another. The notion of faith schools in Britain is a big worry.
That's a big issue in Sweden as well.
So those are issues that in a civilized society you can address, like Britain and Sweden. But I think for the humanist movement worldwide, there are more pressing ideas that people's lives are under threat for not following a doctrine.
What do you think about sort of the rise of anti-scientific scientific views in the world now with Trump and, you know.
Yeah, I think that is a huge worry that somehow this notion that not just that you don't need evidence to hold a particular view, but you can disregard the evidence. Yeah. If you're faced with it and it's so obvious, you can still disregard it and hold whatever view that confirms whatever biased view you have to start with. It is a worry. Initially, I thought it would go away. I thought, you know, people are not stupid. There's, you know, rationalism and reason will prevail. But I think increasingly now, I understand that we have to stand up and speak out. You can't just allow people to come to their senses. So rationalists and scientists have to get their argument across, even if people don't want to listen to us, even if they shout back at us. Well, I think we have to keep trying. It is this populist movement. I thought conspiracy theorists were just some sad people, guys living in their bedroom with their mother. They don't get out much, and they think UFOs exist or whatever. But it seems like it's a much bigger worry than any of us in our comfortable liberal world thought possible.
True. Okay, thank you very much.
My pleasure.